Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Happy Wednesday. I'm going to give us all a minute to funnel in here. Hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Feel free to write in the chat where you're joining us from. I'm live here from DC. Nice to see you. My name is Amanda DeFonte, and I run our webinars and events program here at Network for Good, and I will be your moderator for today's session, the key to recurring giving, which is donor love. Wanted to take just a moment to introduce anyone new here to Network for Good. We really love working with small nonprofits and want to continue offering as many free resources as we can. So feel free to share our upcoming webinars or e-guides, blogs, etc. with your networks. Next week's session will be on how to handle your social media in just 20 minutes a day. So if that interests you, definitely get registered for that. Send it along to friends. We'd love to see you there. But outside of the free webinars that we host and some of the other resources that we provide, Network for Good really tries to make small nonprofits more confident fundraisers. And the main way that we actually do that is through our all-in-one fundraising platform. It has always been our mission to help folks cultivate really impactful donor relationships with our simple, smart fundraising software. So we've got things like easy to build fundraising pages, communication tools like texting, video messaging, email, things like events and auctions platforms. It's an intuitive donor management tool. And we really try to give a small team the all-in-one solution they need to fundraise more confidently. So I'm going to take a quick moment just to share a clip of one of your nonprofit peers and how they use our system. And you can see if it might be a fit for you and if you want to take a look at it a little closer or try it out for free. So I'm going to play this and then I'll push out a quick poll to see if you're interested.
Since starting to use Network for Good, we've pretty much exceeded our goals. I'm Mercedes, the founder of the Good News Community Kitchen, and I'm a Network for Good customer. So the Good News Community Kitchen is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was established to rebuild and strengthen communities by fighting hunger one meal at a time. Originally, it was just a dream or an idea that I had. I got my journal, I did a brainstorm dump, I would expound on the ideas in my journal, and then I just started working towards building those ideas and bringing them to fruition, and we found it in 2015. Network for Good changed how I foster relations with my donors. For instance, the video capabilities. I send my thank you videos out immediately, and what I'm seeing is, let's say my donor who gave me a couple $100 or $50, they'll take that video and they share it with their friends. So that definitely has increased my ability to connect with my donor because I include them in my day just to let them know I'm thinking of them, I'm thankful for them, and that, you know, the best is yet to come. And my donors love it. Network for Good is like a member of the Good News Community Kitchen. And I say that because I'll get reminders and notifications that, hey, make sure you send this email out, make sure you thank people, make sure you follow up with some of these donors who you haven't heard from in a while. And that's a team member. That's what my team does. And so as far as I see, Network for Good is on my team.
So if you want to explore that as a way to, build relationships with your donors, please feel free to fill out the poll on the screen. We'll have somebody from our team reach out to you, learn a little bit more about you and your organization, and see if it might be a good fit. But now I will have the distinct pleasure of introducing today's speaker. We are lucky enough to have Sabrina Walker Hernandez with us. Sabrina is the president and CEO of Supporting World Hope. She's a certified consultant, professional fundraising coach, actually just became a fundraising coach here at Network for Good, and we are so excited to have her. She did such a good job at our virtual conference, we couldn't get enough. She is also a facilitator and best-selling author. She has over 25 years of experience in the nonprofit management, fundraising, and leadership, and she's facilitated numerous workshops with hundreds of organizations and nonprofit professionals. She is certified in nonprofit management by Harvard Business School and is an active community leader and volunteer in Edinburgh, Texas, where she is based. So we are very lucky to have you, Sabrina. I'm going to encourage everybody to funnel questions to Sabrina if you have any in the Q&A section. Feel free to use the chat, but I will stop talking now and hand it over to the star of the show.
So thank you for handing it over to me. Hopefully everyone can see me and the view is good. I am going to make sure that I share my presentation, but I did want you to get a full screen view of me before I do that. So we are going to be talking about the key to repeat donors. And so hopefully everybody can see the screen and as is, and you are good in your view. If you could. Hopefully we are good in our view. I see we have people here. First of all, I want to say that we have people here from the Netherlands, Boston, Texas. Big up to Texas. I'm Texas. I just wanted y'all to know that. I live in South Texas, though, in a little small town called Edinburgh. Most people never heard of it. Los Angeles, Florida. So welcome and thank you for investing the time to be with us today. And I promise that it will not be a waste of your time. So as mentioned, I am Sabrina Walker Hernandez. And just a little bit about me. I know Amanda did a good job in introducing me, but just to add some things, I studied political science and public administration. I obtained a nonprofit management certification from Harvard Business School. And for the last 25 years, I've worked in the nonprofit industry in direct services, operations, and executive leadership. Now, in 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer and I felt I needed to retire. And since then, I've been helping small nonprofits, staff, and board build relationships that convert into more donations. Now, everybody always asks me, why do you keep the cancer diagnosis in there? And I keep it in there because I understand that you are overworked, overwhelmed, and oftentimes stressed out. And so I do webinars in partnership with Network for Good and several others, just because it is good for you to build your skill set, not to have to recreate the wheel. Also, so you can understand all the resources that you need that can make your life a little easier. And so I don't want you to stress out. That's what we're here for, to help you get through some of these challenges that it takes to run a nonprofit. So what I do is I do workshops, board retreats, webinars, coaching, and consulting. But today we're going to be talking about donor love, which is actually my most favorite part of fundraising. And so let's just put the elephant in the room. 85% of donors do not give a repeat gift because they did not receive a thank you. Something as simple as a thank you. Most studies agree that it costs nonprofits about 10 times more to bring in a new donor than it is to keep an existing donor. So what that means is for each 100 new donors, nonprofits bought in, they lost 99. So we are only retaining one donor out of 100. So while we're spending a lot of time and money courting the new kids on the block, I want us to look at, really investing in the people who've already shown us that they support us. And we want to make sure that we are showing them some donor love. Now, I'm not just preaching this. I use this donor love approach for over 15 years as the CEO of a nonprofit organization. I increased my annual operating budget from $750,000 to $2.5 million and completed a $12 million comprehensive capital campaign, started and grew an endowment to $500,000 and had 180 days cash reserve. And my organization is located along the Mexico-Texas border in the third poorest county in the United States. So donor love is something that works. Investing in the donor experience is something that works and will help you grow your organization's budget. And so I'm very excited to share this with you. So by showing your donors some genuine love, you will keep your current donors, You won't get 100 donors and only retain one. You're going to raise more money. You're going to move your donors up the ladder to repeat gifts. And you're going to stop working so hard to get new donors. So let's talk about the fundraising process. I love talking about the fundraising process because I am look, break it down to me. Tell me what I got to do. Tell me where I need to spend my time, because we're all limited on time, especially if you are a nonprofit CEO. You're limited on time. So I'm going to tell you, here's the formula, and this is where you need to spend your time in fundraising, because fundraising is a process. And fundraising is not about asking for money. Only 5% of fundraising is asking for money. So what does that mean? That means 10% of fundraising is identifying donors. 10% of fundraising is then qualifying those donors. And then 60% of fundraising is cultivating those donors. And that's where some donor love comes in. It's the starting process of showing that love. And then 5% is asking for money. And then 15% is thanking. So if you take that 60 and that 15, that's 75% of the fundraising process. Donor love is 75% of the fundraising process. And if you show some pre-love and then you do some post-love, then your fundraising will have a dramatic, it will have a dramatic impact on your fundraising. And so I want you to be very aware of that. Only 5% of fundraising is asking for money. And because you are limited in your time, and because your board members are volunteers and they're limited in their time, or maybe you're in a situation where you don't know how to engage your board members, spend the time on cultivation, building relationships, and thanking. 75%. So let's get into what that looks like for you. And so what that looks like is relationships, which is cultivation and stewardship. It plus results equals reoccurring revenue and retention. Okay. So when I say spend 60% of your time in cultivation, cultivation is everything that you do before you make the ask. That is the building of the relationship. And then stewardship, or saying thank you, is everything you do after you made the ask so that you can then make another one and move people up the donor ladder. So donor retention must be a priority if you want to survive and thrive in today's competitive nonprofit marketplace, period. There's no arguments or excuses. You have to invest in donor love. Securing donors only to lose them is not it doesn't make good business sense. It just doesn't. And you have to remember that although you are running a nonprofit organization, it is a not-for-profit business. And you and your board have to be great stewards of the money that you receive. And you're not being a great steward of the money that you receive if you're not investing in donor love. Because what you're doing is you're getting on that hamster wheel and you're constantly chasing new donors, and it's costing you money. So I invite you to get off that hamster wheel, pause, take a breath, and invest in donor love. So what does it look like to invest in donor love? There's the 3 P's of successful donor retention. If your nonprofit does these 3 things, donors will likely give again and give more. So you want to have a prompt thank you. It's very simple. Remember, 85% of people didn't give a repeat gift because they didn't get a thank you. So you want to get a prompt thank you. You want to make that thank you personal. And you want to make sure that you demonstrate how the gift, the impact of the gift, and a powerful, powerful demonstration. So it's the 3 P's: prompt thank you, personal thank you, and a powerful demonstration of the gift's impact. And the more you incorporate these 3 P's in your ongoing donor acknowledgement, recognition, and communication, the greater success you will have in retaining your donors, and not only retaining your donors, but upgrading your donors. That means if I started out at $100, and I might upgrade to $500. So that's where you want to focus. So how do you do a prompt thank you? What does a prompt thank you look like? A prompt thank you is a donor should be thanked within 24 to 48 hours of receiving a gift. And it's really 24, especially if it's an online gift, it should be immediate. But I add the 48 in there because to me, the automated thank you is not something that I count in that donor love process, because that's automated. But I will say on the automated, you need to craft it in a way that it doesn't feel automated. Sometimes we leave that standard automation sample in there that the CRM system provides for us, or whatever system we're using provides for us. I suggest that you customize that so it really feels like they're getting something immediately from you. It means thank you cards should be warm and genuine. It assures them that the funds will be used as they are intended, and affirms that their investment will make a difference and give concrete examples. Now, you might be saying, if you don't count automatic, that means what is it that you count? I count handwritten notes. Yes, handwritten notes need to be sent out within 24 hours. I have extended grace and said 24 to 48 hours. And there is a system which you can adopt that will get you there. And so that's why let me share this system with you. I'm going to look at the questions and in a few right after this. So some ideas to get you started. At the end of each board meeting, you're going to have board members write thank you cards and sign them. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to hand the board member a pen, and you're going to hand the board member a script to write out at the end of every board meeting. And what I would do is I would get each board member, depending on the size of your board, I would get each board member to do 3 cards. Well, I had a fairly large board. I had 21 board members. And so at the end of every board meeting, they each wrote 3 cards. I passed them out the script. I gave them the pen. I gave them everything. And I made sure I told them, do not address them to anyone. And at the end of those meetings, I collected them back, and I had a stockpile on my desk. So when the gift came in, all I had to do was add the donor's name and sign my name next to the board member's name. Now, some people get in the weeds about, well, the handwritings won't match. I don't get in the weeds about the handwriting not matching, because I'm not writing Dear John. I'm writing John, one word, comma, and signing. That's all I'm doing. And I'm doing it with the same pen that the board member used, because I collect my pens back. Yes, I did. I collect my pens back, but that's the whole point. You want everything to be consistent. You don't want the board member to use the pen out of their bag or out of their purse. Use these pens, get your pens back, do it every board meeting. So you have the same pen and you're just adding the donor's name and signing your name. Simple. That's a system that you can create to be able to send out handwritten note cards from board members for every person that gives to your organization. You can also recruit a group of board members willing to make a few phone calls on a regular basis. Now, this doesn't mean that everybody who gives to your organization is going to get a phone call, but you can set the threshold for that and have those board members that are willing to do it. And you know what type of board members you need in order to do it. You need ones that are going to be accountable, ones that you know will do the follow through. So that's why I said, a few board members. And then you have board members. Also, you can have board members host an annual donor thankathon as a designated board meeting. Okay. At a designated board meeting. I'm going to let you know, I'm probably going to get to the questions at the end. And that way we can revisit all at the same time and can answer those questions. Now, how do you ensure personal thank you? You're going to update thank you notes every month with a new success story. The beginning and the end of the letter itself doesn't change. What changes is the middle. After the phrase, let me tell you about, and you're going to share client story. This will help the thank you note always stay fresh, regardless of when the donor gives. And not only are you helping the donor notes stay fresh, you're helping your board members learn also donor stories. If you incorporate the system of every board meeting, having board members do this. Now, I am basing it on you holding monthly board meetings and you're holding those board meetings in person. So I do understand that. Now, personal connection, donor need to connect to a human being because they need to feel an ongoing connection. Otherwise, they're unlikely to repeat their gift. They have to have a personal connection. And that's why I say those automated thank yous do not establish that personal connection. The more personal, the better. Not a mass email holiday greeting, not an automatic thank you. So, but a report or a note that says, "Dear Sarah," or just say Sarah if you're worried about handwriting match. I think what you did was wonderful. Now Mary and her kids can sleep through the night. But you take that and you make it personal because you need to have that personal connection. You're building a relationship, which is 20% of the fundraising process. I'm sorry, 60% of the fundraising process is building relationships, which is cultivation. And so here's some ideas to get you started on that. You set up personal visits. This won't make sense with every donor, but for folks who you are cultivating, building a relationship with for a major gift or significant upgrade, it's the very best thing you can do. So setting up personal visits with those donors. Send a video thank you. You can record it yourself using your smartphone with just you talking, waving and smiling. Send a video from someone your donor's gift made possible. So that's like a client. I happen to be in the youth industry when I ran my nonprofit. And so I would have kids record kids with my phone saying, thank you for supporting us. Thank you for the gift. And I would text that immediately to a donor or use my system to send that out to the donor. Send a note from someone your donor's gift made possible. It can come from a client, a guide dog, a painting, a bag. You just have to get creative. But the point is, if you're not sending it from a board member, you can send it from a client. Now that third P, powerful demonstration of impact. Donors don't care about what you do. Those are activities. Donors don't care about how many people you serve. Those are outputs. Donors want to understand the impact of your work. Donors want to know who is being helped. They want to know how lives are being changed. And they want to know how their investment in your nonprofit is making a real difference in the world. So don't start off your thank you notes or anything, because of you, we're able to serve over 10,000 kids. And I say that really comfortably because that's what I did for a long time. And that's not what they want. They want to know how their dollars impacted your work. So you need to make, again, that personal connection. It's not about the 10,000 kids or the 10,000 homeless. It is about Sarah. I'll say Sarah and her kid and how that donor made an impact on that particular family. And it was a hard thing for me to switch my mindset. But when I did, it made a huge difference. So your donors want to hear stories about your successful outcomes. They want to know how their investment had an impact. So you have to collect, organize, and share amazing and inspiring stories with your donors. And then you share these stories in your donors' newsletter, in your annual report, in your social media feeds, when you meet with donors, and again, in the thank you letters. And don't overwhelm your donor with these pictures of a large crowd of kids, if that's what your mission is. Make it specifically about one client when you're sharing this. Because I can help one person, but if you overwhelm me with the numbers of 10,000, I can't help 10,000 people. But I can make a difference in Sarah's life. And so I want you to get that when we're talking about powerful demonstrations, because it took me a long time to get that. And then the other thing that I like to do under powerful demonstrations of gifts, because it does take some time for you to collect stories, to learn about your clients, but it's worth it. Again, 60% of the fundraising process is building relationships. And the only way you're going to build those relationships is if you have to have the human side of it. You must connect the dots between your donor's gift and actual impact. Donors want to know that what their hard-earned money is accomplishing. And how do we know that? For my skeptics out there, how we know that is because donors tell us. There are a number of studies out there. 53% of donors do not renew their giving because the organization failed to properly communicate in one way or another. 46% of donors leave for reasons tied to a lack of meaningful info or to a feeling their giving is not appreciated. 60% want impact and success stories and say their decision to give again hinges greatly on the organization's ability to show what it can accomplish. 70% of donors would increase their investment if they receive what they needed from the charities. And what do they need? A prompt thank you, a prompt personal thank you that shows impact. 75% of donors uses information about a nonprofit's impact in their giving decisions. And 75% of donors list information on results achieved with their gift as their top requirement to motivation for future giving. So the 3 Ps, prompt thank you, personal thank you, and the powerful demonstration of gift impact. That is what you have to do. So let's talk about some ideas to get you started. So how are you going to collect those stories? I know right now, when I say collect those stories, some people are saying to themselves, program don't talk to this if your organization is big enough. But here, we're going to get you focused on how you can collect those stories, and here's some ideas and how you can also get those stories to your board member. So include mission moments in all of your board and committee meetings and volunteer activities. They need to hear stories about the people they're helping. So what is a mission moment? I don't want to assume that everybody knows what a mission moment is. So a mission moment is when you get a client to come into your board meeting or into your meeting, and they come in and they introduce themselves. It takes 5 minutes of your board agenda. Don't say, oh my God, my agenda is already so long. It's literally 5 minutes of your board agenda. And they will come in and they will share their story. And we're going to get more into mission moments. And you're going to, another idea that you can do is add a video with testimony from someone that has been helped. You add that to your website, or you can add it into your e-newsletter, your blog, and or email signature. You can add a testimonial from people helped to your donors honor roll and or share via social media. So those are some 3 relatively quick ideas that you can get accomplished. But what is the goal of that? The goal of it is to make sure that you have ongoing engagement and ongoing communication, because that is the real foundation of donor love. Absence does not make the heart grow fonder. You want to avoid giving your donors the impression you don't really care that much about them. We all know the feeling. The one you get when friends get busy and they forget to call or write, and as they text, eventually you stop thinking about each other. So the goal is to stay top of mind. That is the goal. Don't be afraid to reach out more than a few times to your donors. You got to connect emotionally on a frequent basis. Donors need to be reminded how their money is being applied towards results that are lasting and effective. Donors want to hear from you. And when they hear from you, it makes them feel awesome. Report on outcomes that they care about when you are connecting with them. It's going to make them feel like, they're in the know or a part of a special community. And you can connect with them by asking them for feedback, opinions, and advice. So donor love is communication. We know this. And here's some ideas to get you started. Remember back in May when we told you we were 60,000 meals short? Well, thanks to you, we just served that 60,000th meal. They want to hear that. They want to receive that appreciation and that credit. Remember when you received an appeal asking you to help Janet and her son? I'm Janet. and thanks to you. So that is a thank you that comes from a client. Remember last year when we told you Jimmy was the first in his family to graduate from college? We thought you'd like to hear Jimmy just got a job. So it's about that individual person. And if you are bent on using the 60,000 or we serve 10,000 kids, make it relevant. Say, because of you, we just served that 60,000th meal. And I'm going to quickly go back to explain mission moment, because I want to be aware of time. And I think this really can truly change your board dynamics and how you get the board engaged. Kicking off your board meetings with mission moments, having a client come in and share their stories is going to be key, because board members and people in general will remember a story as opposed to remembering stats. And so when you get that client in front of that board member, then it will help make that human connection with that board member. So then your board members can be a stronger ambassador as they go out into the community. And so I wanted to make sure I said that with time. I know I have a slide in here on it, but I did want to go back and recap that. And so also donors, when you are talking about donor love, you can't treat all donors the same. And that's where building the relationship comes in, because some donors are going to respond with different activities than others. They speak a different love language. And so by now, you should have heard of the original 5 love language by Dr. Gary Chapman: the acts of services, the words of affirmation, the gifts of appreciation, physical touch, quality time. Well, Tammy Zonker has taken the time and to do the 5 donor love languages, right? So when you're showing donor love, there's hands-on services, there's words of affirmation, there's tokens of appreciation, there's quality time, and there's proof of impact. So let's break that down. If you had a donor, because if you spend 60% of the fundraising time allocated to learning about your donor, engaging in your donor, cultivating your donor, you will know what type of love language that they speak. And so as you learn about them, if they are a hands-on service, some of the things that you can do is provide those hands-on activities. So many donors want to roll up their sleeves, engage in hands-on experiences, and feel something, whether it's spending an afternoon at a summer camp for grieving children, or a ride along with the program staff doing outreach to people experiencing homelessness in the community. Hands-on service can be a life-changing and enlightening experience if your donor is a hands-on service type of person. The other one is words of affirmation. Those are the people who are going to respond to the thank you calls and the handwritten notes of appreciation. These are priceless to these donors. 5% of donors report wanting their gift acknowledgement letters personalized with handwritten notes. So keep that in mind when it's words of affirmation. Tokens of appreciation, and I say token of appreciation, not swag. Don't give me a pen that has your organization name on it as my gift, or a tote bag, or anything that you order like that. I'm talking about tokens of appreciation that brings it back to the mission. So what are we saying? We're saying handmade Valentines made by children in your program, your clients in your program, framed and matted photos of your donors taken at your organization's event, a dozen cookies from the local bakery decorated with a simple thank you mission. We're talking modest, inexpensive expressions that convey our gratitude. Sending them a card on their birthday. Those are the kind of things that we're talking about. Quality time. Number one, cultivation, face-to-face. For some donors, nothing replaces a face-to-face visit when it comes to, spending quality time. Each quality visit must meet 2 or more of the following criteria: leave the donor feeling valued by the nonprofit, convey the impact of their giving to the cause, deepens the donor's understanding of the nonprofit needs, and strengthen the donor's emotional connection to the nonprofit. Now, you can't go to lunch with everybody. I understand this, but there's a simple thing that I did in my head, and I said, I want to cultivate or steward some of my top donors or some of my potential top donors. And so I said, I wanted to meet with 20 people, 20 of my top donors in a year. And basically broke that down by quarter. 4 quarters in a year, that's 5 lunches in a quarter. If you break, I can invest 5, I can go to 5 lunches with 5 different donors in a quarter. And so setting up those, but I want to make sure it's the donors who are going to kind of appreciate that, the people who value quality time, right? And then number 5, proof of impact. Report the measurable outcome of your organization's work, which is possible through charitable contributions and other funding source. Proof of impact is one of those, those P's, powerful impact. You have to share that with everyone, but there's certain donors that you can share a little bit more with. Like, you might send them your annual report, but you might want to pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, did you get the annual report? Was there any questions that you had around there? Is there anything else that you would like to see us measure? That is the step beyond. So I want to say this, that donor love works. It works. There's studies that show that it works. It's a donor-centric approach to donor engagement, and it's going to have significant impact on donor retention and donor gifts and upgrades to those gifts. And they've done studies where they say, you know what, let's not engage in the donor love process with this group and see what happens. Well, what happens is you will not retain them. And if you invest in them and show that donor love, your retention will go up. And not only will your retention go up, you will also upgrade your gifts. So it's very important that you invest in donor love. Why is it important? It's important, again, because 75% of fundraising is about that human connection. It's about building relationships. 60% is cultivation. And cultivation is simply face-to-face meetings, whether you're taking them to lunch, whether you're, popping by to say hi. It's that face-to-face. It's picking up the phone and calling your donor, checking in on them, reaching out to them. It's engaging them in volunteer opportunities, those hands-on volunteer opportunities, those day of caring. It's those things. It's getting them to come to events. And I'm not talking necessarily about special events. It could be a roundtable discussion. It could be a house party event, a house party that a board member is hosting and you want to get them more engaged. It's picking up the phone or sending an email and asking them for advice. That's what cultivation is. And then when it comes to stewardship, yes, you're really repeating cultivation tactics and activities. But what you have to put on top of that is the thank you. What you have to put on top of that is the personalization, because you've gotten the gift. And now you just need to show that gratitude. and that gratitude, and show not only the gratitude, but how their money changed lives, how their hard-earned dollars that they chose to invest in your organization was a great investment for them. And what happens oftentimes with our busy nonprofits is we get the gift and then that's it. We don't send a thank you. We don't continue with the stewardship. And the stewardship and saying thank you is the second biggest piece of the fundraising pie. And so when you don't do the donor love, when it comes to that 15%, you're going to lose the donors. And that is why we're having such a low retention rate of our donors, because we get the gift and we fail to say thank you, or we get the gift and we fail to create a first-time donor experience. And so you have to be very conscious about donor love. And so I want you to be aware of that. And there's some simple things. I don't like to overwhelm people because exactly I know where you're at in your journey. And I don't like to overwhelm people. But if you don't have a stewardship plan, you need to make sure that you get one. And I'm going to communicate a very simple stewardship plan to you. It's not based on, it is based on donor love, but it's not based on customization of the donor love process, but it gets you started. And so a simple thing that you can do as far as a stewardship plan is say, for every 0 that a donor gives, that will equate to a touch. So let me explain that. So if a donor gives $99 or less, that's 1 0, right? So then they will get a thank you card. If they give the next level, $100 up until $999, that's 2 zeros. So they're going to get a thank you card and perhaps a video message. Because that's 2 touches. If they give 1,000 to the next level, that's 3 touches. So they're going to get a thank you card, a video, and perhaps a phone call from a board member. And then the next level is 4 zeros. So they're going to get 4 touches. And then 5 zeros, and they'll get 5 touches. So that's a simple, basic stewardship plan that you can start off with that will help you at least get something going. Because where we fall off oftentimes is not having a good process to show donor love. And that's why CRM systems are so important, because you can track donor engagement. You can track donor communication. You will have an anniversary date for their first gift, and you can send them an anniversary card. You can have, their birthday in the system, and you can send them a birthday card. You can even have when their wedding anniversary is, and you can send them an anniversary for their wedding. It's very important that you have this information because you're building a relationship. It's very much like dating. I would tell people all the time, it is just like dating. You meet a donor, you go on a date, you don't ask that potential donor for money on the first date, because that's just rude. You don't do that. You don't go all the way on the first date, right? You court them. And that's what the cultivation process is. It's a courting process. You get to know them, figure out if it's going to be a match. You're courting. And then at some point, you're going to pop the question, right? You're going to ask them to marry you. You ain't dating forever. You got to ask them to marry you. And then after you ask them to marry you, you just don't stop courting your spouse, right? You're going to celebrate. You're going to celebrate your anniversary. You're going to celebrate holidays. You're going to celebrate life milestones. That's what you're doing with your donors when you show donor love. So if you equate it to dating, hopefully that will make a difference for you. So what I want to do is I want you to start loving on your current donors and stop obsessing about strangers. Love on your current donors, and they will provide you with repeat gifts. Don't lose those first-time donors. Make sure they have a good donor experience, first-time donor experience. Treat your first-time donors like gold. Send them a letter with a token gift and maybe a copy of your newsletter. Send them a packet. Welcome them to your family. And if you do that, they're going to give a repeat gift. And if you continue to cultivate and steward, you're going to upgrade them in their gifts. And you're not going to be losing 99 people for every 100 people that you get to give to your organization. So now let's look at these questions because I see 37 questions. So I got Shannon here. Shannon said, if donors are given online and receive an automatic thank you acknowledgement, do you recommend an actual letter be sent as a follow-up? And I say yes, Shannon. Again, I say yes because I do not count an automated thank you. I, again, prompt and personal thank you. And so hopefully the system of having board members do that will help you, because if not, it can get overwhelming. And another little trick that you can do if it's not board members is have your clients do thank you cards. Because I work with youth, I would have kids do thank you cards. And again, they were not made out to anybody. And I had a stockpile of those on my desk with misspellings and all. They were just cute cards. And then as soon as a gift came in, I would send it to the donor. So Melissa, is it appropriate to send an invitation to a fundraising event and a thank you email or letter? What if it's just a note at the bottom with the QR code to the event? Now, are you asking them for money? Because that first thank you is a thank you. It's showing gratitude. That's it. It's not inviting them to do anything else. It is completely to show gratitude. Now, what you could do is after you show your gratitude is you could send them an email about the event, because that's keeping them in the know. Hey, we have this event coming up. Would you be interested in? But I would keep those as two separate communications. Does an email thank you count as a thank you? Or do you recommend a mail thank you? I think we've answered that one. I do not count them. I do not count the automated. That's just an opinion. I don't count the automated. I think every donor deserves a handwritten card. I've seen that it does truly make a difference in the donor experience process, and it makes a difference in the retention process. And this is, I think also this is why, because we all get emails. And for some people, emails overwhelm me. And I know it's an automatic thing, and I just delete them because my box is full. I'm just going to be honest with you. Whereas I rarely get handwritten notes in the mail anymore because people don't use mail. And so when I get a physical card in the mail, it makes my heart smile. I'm just being honest with you. So, and I have a grant writing question here, and it's about what amount of time should be spent on writing grants. So I'm going to say this: when grants too is a way that you can show donor love, because when you're writing grants, you're actually writing them to a foundation or you're writing them to a corporation or to a person that's sitting at their desk who works at the state or at the federal. You do also need to engage and communicate with them and cultivate with them. Having completed a $12 million capital campaign, I did a lot of that with grants, but I got to know the program managers. And I got to build relationships at those foundations with those program managers. So I don't want you to walk away saying donor love is only showed to, it is only showed to individuals, but you have to remember that foundations are run by individuals, corporations are run by individuals, state grant departments are run by individuals. It's all run by individuals. And so I want to say that. Now, as far as time you spend on grant writing, I spent, I hate grant writing. You didn't ask me that, but it's a necessary evil. I will say that as far as grant writing, and I probably spent maybe 30% of my time on it. Not a huge part of my time. I always like to spend my time on individuals, and I will tell you why. Because when an individual gives to you, it is unrestricted dollars. When the individual gives to you, if you treat them right, they will continue to give to you. When an individual gives to you, even if they move away from your community, there's a larger possibility that they still will give to you. Whereas with a grant, it's for a very specific time period. It's for exactly what they want you to accomplish. And so I did spend a lot of my time on this donor cultivation stewardship process. So yes, Shannon, yeah, post office doesn't run that fast. It takes 3 to 5 days. But what I'm saying is you getting it out of your office within that time, understanding that the post office doesn't work that fast, right? So that's why the sooner you get it out, the quicker the donor will get it. Whereas if it sits on your desk for 3 days and then it takes the post office 3 days, then that's too much time in between. So that's for that reason. So how do you, Jessica, how do you feel about making phone calls as a part of the prompt? Thank you. I absolutely think that the phone call is a good way to do a prompt thank you, especially depending on how many zeros there are. And that's why a good stewardship plan will let you know that if a person gives you 4 zeros, then, I want to make sure they have a prompt phone call, or 5 zeros. Immediately when that check comes in, I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling them. So phone calls are really good. So I struggle with writing impact reports. It's never simple. Thanks to you, we've been able to sign up 200 Girl Scouts at no cost to the girl's family. So I hope that helped you. It is never simple, but if you make it about one girl, identify the impact that you've had on one girl, it will make a huge difference. So sometimes when we are in a development position or a CEO position, we are disconnected from the program, but make some time to go and talk to your client and get their story. And that's why I like to incorporate it in the board meeting, because not only is the board getting the story through the mission moment, you're also getting the story as a resource development person if you're at that meeting, or as a CEO if you're at that meeting. Okay, what do you recommend for online donors who do not provide their mailing address? So Shannon, what I would do with online donors who did not provide their mailing address is I reached out to them via email and I said, look, I was very honest with them. I want to send you something in the mail, a token of appreciation. This is our process. I would love to send something to you. And if you're willing, please share your address. And oftentimes they did. And if they didn't, that was clearly, they told me they did not want to. So that's something to note in your system, your CRM system as well. So how often after the first handwritten note throughout the year for cultivation? So Dan, this is what I say, and I want to be cognitive of time. Someone can cut me off. I have this formula that I use called the 5 by 5, which means 5 people is what I'm usually cultivating, or I have a board member cultivate no more than 5 people. And then I want to ensure that they do 5 touches, cultivation touches, or stewardship touches throughout the year. So whether that's taking them out to lunch, inviting them in on a tour, picking up the phone and talking to them, inviting them to a hands-on project event, or asking them for advice, that's 5 times, at least 5 times. So how do we reconcile donor privacy with sharing donor information with board members making calls? So your board members, Jennifer, your board members are your governing body. They should have access to that anyway. Nonprofit, there's no owner. So the legal authority over that nonprofit is the board. So there is no donor privacy conflict there. They should be aware of that. And then what I did was I said, here's the donor and here's their telephone number. Here's the script. Let's use 20 minutes of our board time or post board time to call these donors and just say thank you. So any alternative ideas for using success stories of clients? We are unable to share client stories. I like this due to privacy laws and have struggled with replacement updates in the past. So when you have privacy laws as far as your client, you have to get creative and tell the story from a different perspective. So I worked with a client that was a battered women's shelter, and we told the story from the perspective of the bag that's packed in the closet, the bag that is ready when that person is ready to escape. We told the story from that perspective. I worked with a client who worked with homeless. They called them unhoused. And again, they did not, for privacy reasons, didn't want the clients to speak at the board meetings or share those stories. So what we did was we shared the story from the perspective of the box, right? Because that mission of that organization was to get people off the street into homes, take them from being unhoused to housed. And so we shared the story from the perspective of the box. The box, originally, this box was my home. And as they transitioned through, that box became their moving box into their new home. So we told the story from that perspective. And so when you have those client privacy issues, you have to tell the story, but you have to tell the story from in a different perspective. If you're working with abused children, perhaps you tell the story from a teddy bear. If you're working, so I gave them some good examples. So think of examples like that. So here's another impact story. When the majority of our campaigns support the general, I had more to add to the impact report question. When the majority of our campaign supports the general operating fund, what should we say we did with the money, but besides paying staff salaries or keeping the lights on? Yeah, Melissa, nobody wants to pay for staff salaries and keeping the light on. That's just not sexy. We understand that. And so you have to, when you're doing your annual campaign and you are getting support for the general operating budget, you still need to know how much your service is costing you. And that's just a part of the salaries is just a part of it, and keeping the lights on is just a part of it. There are other additional services that you're providing that you have to know the cost of. So when we did our annual campaign and talked about it, we said it cost us this much money to service one child. And how we came up with that much money to service one child was we factored in what the staff cost us. We factored in what the lights were. We factored in what the program costs were. All of those things were factored in to get to that number. And that's how you equate it. So to service one child, it costs this, or to service one client, it costs this. And it's not just about what program supplies you need. It's about what staff you need. It's about the building that you need to deliver the service. It's about the lights that you need to deliver the service. It's about the garbage collector that you need to deliver the service, the water bill. It's all of those costs go into what it costs to service a client. And that will help you if you can narrow that down and create it like that. So in regards to personal visits,
Sabrina,
Hey,
we are just about at time here. We're a
Okay.
little bit over, and some folks are writing in the chat that they have to jump
Okay.
to meetings. So
okay,
want to be respectful of everyone's time, but appreciate you being diligent in those questions.
Yes.
Lots of thank yous rolling in through the chat. Karen had said this is by far one of the best webinars that I've ever been on, and lots of people singing your praises here in the chat. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
This was a
Amanda, can I
great
ask
session.
something really
Yeah,
quick?
you can. Yep.
Is there any way that you can send me these questions and I can respond to them individually?
Sure thing. I
All
can do
right,
my
great.
best, or we can put together some form of blog that has maybe the most common ones. We can definitely, I'll get you the questions and we can figure out a way to get those answers to everyone.
Perfect. I know it's 106. I apologize.
No worries. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you everyone here for joining us. And we hope to see you next week for our social media session. Bye everyone.